Welcome to the Attractions Group podcast. I'm Don Helbig. I'm joined by Ryan Suhr. This is episode 4 for us. We want to remind everyone to follow us on Twitter at attractions_GRP. That's on Twitter, and subscribe to us on YouTube. Once we have enough subscribers, Ryan and I, we're going to start doing Q&As live on YouTube. Really looking forward to that time when it gets here.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that as well. I mean, we can do some live Q&As on YouTube, so make sure you subscribe on there. Just look for the Attractions Group podcast, and then subscribe through your favorite podcast app, whether it's Apple or Android or whatever your forte is, and then you can stay up to date. But besides that, Don, you have an anniversary today. Tell us about your anniversary. It's not a wedding anniversary, but it's something else.
No, not a wedding anniversary, but 40 years ago today, it was July 7th, 1982. I took my 2000th ride on the Racer roller coaster. At the time, that was a record for the most non-consecutive rides on the Racer. What that means is I had to get off the ride, get right back in line, and do it again, but not stay on the coaster to have that record. But it was something, a lot of attention started to come about around that time. The year before, I hit the 1000th ride on the Racer. I was trying to get a one-day record. Which evolved into what it became. When you go there every day and you're falling short of that one-day record, you're still adding up on the numbers. So the 1000th ride happened the year before. It was so much fun. I thought I'd come back in 1980 and continue what I was doing, and I hit that 2000th ride on this date 40 years ago.
Well, congratulations on a 40-year anniversary on that. Now, I know that Ruth Voss, the former PR for Kings Island, marketed it as a friendly rivalry between you and Carl Eichelman, who was riding the Beast doing a similar operation. How much of that was true, and how much of that was something that was just for the papers?
Well, it really was a friendly rivalry. I met Carl the year before, 1981, as he was getting close to 2,000 rides on the Beast, and thought it was kind of neat, kind of cool what I was doing on the Racer. I don't think he thought I'd, sustain what I was doing. A lot of people, try to do things like this, and they do it for 3 or 4 days and then they're done. So I don't think he thought what I was doing I was going to sustain and keep going and eventually pass him up, which is what happened. But, it was fun. It was a nice media story to say that Kings Island had these two people that visit the same theme park every single day to ride these roller coasters. And, it was fun for the park. Got a lot of exposure out of it. It was fun for Carl and I.
Well, that's cool. Well, congratulations once again. But we're here to talk about, not you this time, we're talking about the theme park industry. Don, what are we talking about today?
Well, today we're going to talk about going cashless, and you're seeing more and more parks do this. It seems like every day there's another story of another park doing it. I got to tell you, Ryan, for me, the first time I heard about this concept was late in 2018. The Tampa Bay Rays had announced that they were going to go cashless for the 2019 season. Very innovative organization. So I was intrigued, I was just fascinated by what they were thinking of doing and how that was going to work and what the gain would be for me as a fan going to their games in terms of wait times, between innings and things like that. And, I wondered if it was going to evolve eventually to our industry, and it has.
Absolutely. Hey, so what are the benefits, surface level benefits of going cashless?
Well, when you're talking about going cashless, there's a net gain majority of the guests going to a park when you're in a cashless environment. Removing the use of cash, it speeds up the transaction at the food and beverage locations, the stores. It really just makes a better, experience for the guest. You're able to get your food a lot quicker. And for the park, there's a big gain there too as well. That comes with doing that. Counting. It's more comfortable, more manageable for the park. It's more cost effective in the long run. So there's a gain, really. For the park, there's a gain for the guest. It's just a better overall experience. And, I think you're going to see more and more of this as we go further and further.
Yeah, I don't doubt that there's definitely a gain, especially for the park, because it seems like, when it comes to, the speed of the transaction time is definitely something that's a consideration, and cards are almost always faster than cash. Not many people are carrying cash nowadays. So it seems like it affects less and less people like every year. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, it does. Before a park would do that, they obviously have the metrics, the analytics that tells them what percentage of the transactions are cash, what percentage are uh, credit card, debit cards, some mobile device app, whether it's Apple Pay, Google Pay, those kind of things. You have that information armed with that, so you know what the percentage is before you shift to a cashless situation.
So, I mean, top of your head, what percentage of sales would be cash? Like, at what point would you say that it's time to switch to cashless? Like, where would you put the benefit if if you were the decision maker in this particular process?
Well, I think you don't have to just look at your own park too. You can look across, America, how many people, what their spending habits are and how they're doing it. So you're probably now at a time where 75, 80% are doing it not cash, not with cash. They're using their Apple Pay, their Google Pay, they're using their debit cards. So for most, it's a pretty seamless transition, not something that they have to adjust to.
Awesome. Do you think that there's obviously, the thing that's going to come to mind for some people is that it's possible that people could it could deter sales where someone wants to buy something but they only have cash. We'll talk about solutions for that later. But do you think that there's any way that going cashless actually encourages sales?
I think it just makes it easier for everybody. You don't have to be carrying cash with you. I think you're going to find in time if you're going cashless as a part that you're going to see that you're selling more. It's a lot easier if somebody's not counting the money in their wallet or they're out of money. It's just you have the card, you're going to use it, right? You have Apple Pay, you're going to use it. You have Google Pay, you're going to use it. It's going to increase your sales throughout the day and obviously up throughout the year there when you do that. But um, you know, more and more people are just used to it now, and it's really working well across the board of all the different parks that I know that are have gone cashless. Sports teams that have gone cashless. I go to a lot of Cincinnati Reds games. They've gone cashless. Talking to people with the Reds, they feel that it's increased the wait time by 40, 50%. At Great American Ballpark, and I can't argue that because when I've got up, between innings to go get something to eat or drink, I'm back in my seat. I'm not missing an inning or two waiting in line for food anymore like I used to. So it's definitely paying off there as well, and we're seeing that in the amusement theme park industry as well too, where lines are moving much much quicker.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I agree with you there. And plus, it seems like chain wide in some instances. There's always a guinea pig park that goes cashless, and the others seem to follow. So if it didn't work, obviously it wouldn't spread, and it probably wouldn't, stay with one park even. So with that being said, though, what would you if a park was going to go cashless? What would you warn them about the drawbacks of going cashless? Like, what are some of the things you need to overcome when you're going cashless?
Well, the biggest thing is just communication, making sure your guests understand that you have gone cashless. Also, to explain how it works if you aren't, somebody that really wants to carry around a credit card. You've done cash everywhere you've gone. How to make it work for you. There are those kiosks at the park, so it's not like if you only have cash, you're out of luck. You can't spend any money at the park. You come in. There's the machines that you put the money in and you get a card. So you take the cash to card, and that can be used throughout the park. And that also typically carries over too. So if you didn't use, let's say you put in $50, you didn't use it all today, you have what's left over for your next visit to use.
Yeah, when I was a kid, my parents would give me $10 and drop me off at the front gate. Nowadays, parents probably do the same, but I suppose that the kids could just feed the money into the machine and then get a card out. But what are some of the things that a park can do to prepare to go cashless if it's the plan in the next year or so?
Well, you have to spread the word in advance about cashless payments, understand guest payment preferences. You got to create a secure framework for the cashless transaction. Just make sure you cover all your bases, with the different payment options that are out there, and make sure that they understand that all they have to do is, they can swipe a credit card, a debit card, a smart phone device with Apple Pay or Google Pay, uh, where you normally use cash, and also that card at the kiosk. And you just got to make sure that you're communicating how it works. Just so everybody's, because there's normally that knee jerk reaction that I only have cash, I can't go there anymore, and that's not the case at all. We've actually made it easier for you in the industry now with all these parks that are going cashless. All you have to do is just again just insert that money into that machine, and you get that cash to card. Um, it's safe, it's secure, it's fast, it's more efficient. You're going to spend less time waiting in line at the merchandise at the at the ticket windows. I mean, it's just a win-win for everybody across the board. You just have to understand that you're not out of luck if you do not have a credit card, and all you do is spend cash everywhere. You can still do it, but in a different way.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, you can absolutely still spend money, and I mean, like I said, we're converting to cards now with the machines in the front of the park or throughout the parks and so on. What do you think are some of the best ways to inform your the guests ahead of time that they're cashless, especially like in the weeks leading into it, where it comes down to crunch time. Say 14 days out, if you want to let people know that hey, starting in 2 weeks from Monday, we're not going to be taking cash anymore. What are some of the best avenues to do that?
One of the best avenues are your newsletter. That's the best way to reach your audience is still through email. You have all these different things that have come about, over the years, but email's still, a very efficient way to communicate to your guests. Probably the best way still. There's the mobile device. You can do text messaging, you can do mobile messaging, out of venue messages, those kind of things as well. You want to make sure your website, that's in a prominent area. If someone's visiting the website, one of the first things they see is that WordPress. So that is out there, and you also, when you do something like that, it's major news. You're changing something that you've always had, so you're going to have that earned media aspect as well, where the TVs, the newspapers, the radio stations are all going to be talking about at this park. This is now the way they're going. It's going to be cashless, and here's what you have to do. So there's a lot of ways to do it. You just got to make sure you do it. Take advantage of all those avenues to communicate.
So, in your experience, both professionally and personally, would you say that the reaction to going cashless has been pretty positive?
Yeah, after a guest experiences it, whether it's at a theme park or a sporting event, absolutely, they really see that it's fast, it's easy, it's secure, less time. I mean, who wants to wait in line, right? So if you're saving time in line, that's a win for everybody. So yeah, my conversations, both the theme park goer, the sports fan, uh, now that they're becoming accustomed to it, they love it.
Yeah, I mean, I remember when you guys announced it, for a park that you work for, you were like, I know you're gonna love it because I hate waiting in line. I hate cash. I hate waiting for somebody to count cash. I hate carrying cash. I hate everything about cash except for having like a lot of it in the bank digitally.
Yeah, I mean, think back to the days. I mean, I was always, in line behind the person. You would go up to the counter and they would say their meal was like $16.79. And they'd be like, oh, 79. And then they would have to start digging in their pocket. I got the 79, and they're spending 3 or 4 minutes trying to find the change and the pennies and counting it down. And, that's just taking time out of everybody's day. Right. So, you're just really it really just adds to the guest experience when you can move through the lines a lot quicker by having a cashless operation.
Well, yeah, and plus, through no fault of their own, I would say the average 16, 17, 18-year-old kid nowadays probably doesn't have a lot of experience counting cash simply because it's not used. My first job when I was 15 years old was at McDonald's as a cashier, and we did not take cards. We were cash only, and that was standard, across the board for most of the franchises for McDonald's. So I was able to count cash very quickly, but I don't think that's a skill that kids nowadays develop simply because they're just not exposed to it. So if one in every 30 transactions is cash, of course it's going to be slow, but it's also going to be a transaction that takes, 5 or 6 times longer than a normal transaction. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, and the other piece of that is not only the counting the cash, and that like I said, there is a skill to that, is the you're gonna, if you're busy, you're gonna run out of ones, things like that. So you have to wait for someone to bring another, the ones to you, or somebody's the shift change. They're counting out the drawer and things right in the middle of the lunch hour or something. So just a great thing across the board. It's great for associates, working the registers. It's great for the guests. Um, there's no downside to it to me. But you do know whenever there's change, that there's always some initial resistance to it until someone experiences the new format.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. I would say that there's so many positives to it. In some instances, though, you've got to do it in a manner that's not insane. Like I know that a park that I go to regularly, they initially had a system when they went cashless for the midway games where, if you walk up to an associate, say like, okay, I want to play the basketball game, they direct you to a kiosk to buy a card and then turn around and give the card back to them. Since then, it seems like that's changed. In which you can, okay, I want to play. Okay, that's $10, and you swipe the card right there. So it seems like there are some certain growing pains involved, and there's some learning points that could certainly be addressed. But what would you say in your experience are some of the things that you've learned about going cashless that you didn't know when it initially came to fruition?
I think for me, it was just how quickly everybody accepted it. Because again, you always have that initial pushback when you make a change to tradition, what everyone's always done, even though they, 70, 80% were already always spending. Their spending was done with a debit card, Google Pay, Apple Pay, those kind of things. So for me, I think just how quickly everyone adapted to it. And now it's just a way of life when they go, to a theme park or a sporting event or wherever else they go, that's in place.
Okay, so we talked about the digital kiosks and how little Billy can drop $20 into the machine and get a card. Do you have any other thoughts on objections that parents might have with going cashless if their kids are there and they don't want to give the kid a credit card, or like, do you have any words of advice or any thoughts on that?
Well, I think a lot of that, it starts again with the park. They have to make sure that that information is communicated so there's no surprise when a guest gets to the park. They understand it's cashless here. I think just making sure that the parent knows that you can still give them cash and they can turn that cash into a card. And I think for parents too, as we get deeper into this, they're more comfortable, with this card because their kid's not going to lose the money somewhere in the park, on a ride or just, leave it on a table or something when they're eating, those kind of things. So it's a little easier for, their kids to manage the day.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that. Like I said, I was always dropped off at the park with $10 and I would come back with zero because I would spend six and lose four. So ultimately I think that if it had gone cashless and I had the situation, I'd be sitting on a lot more money from when I was 13 or 14 years old. So Don, we talked about several aspects of this. We talked about using credit cards, debit cards, Apple Pay, Google Pay, like the tap payments. Where do you see the future of purchasing at theme parks? Like, I obviously this is where it is now, and I think the immediate future is the contactless payments, such as Apple Pay and Google Pay.
Mhm.
Um, if you were going to say that there was going to be something that was next after this, maybe 5 or 10 years from now, be creative and tell me where do you think it would go?
Well, I think, for me, it's still going to come down to the technology that's going to be available out there. That next Apple Pay, that next Google Pay. So I think what's next in line there is the way it's going to go. Now, at the same time, as more and more parks are going cashless, you got to remember too, there's a number of parks out there that they cannot go cashless because they are still under the pay as you go for the attraction type of an operation. You might get admissions free, but you got to pay if you want to ride the roller coaster. You got to pay if you want to ride the carousel. Those kind of things. Those parks they can't go cashless. So I think you're not. It's not that it's going to become every park doing it because that some of them can.
Well, I disagree, Don. I don't think that those parks couldn't go cashless because what do? You go up to the booth and you buy tickets. I mean, who cares how you spend the money? You're not handing a ride operator $5 to ride the roller coaster. You're handing them tickets. So I think at the initial transaction point, you could do that. In addition to that, you could take a note off of like arcade games, and you could have a card that has tickets on it, and it's got a declining balance that you would swipe actually at the rise. Do you have any thoughts on that?
Well, I think what you're looking at is, I mean, yeah, you could do that to where they would go up to a booth and buy X number of tickets or something like that. But a lot of those kind of parks, they don't have the technology. to do that. I mean, they're old school. They're still counting tickets out of buckets and things like that. So they would have a long way to go to catch up to be able to implement all that kind of technology across the board in their parks at the registers and at the ticket booths and everything else. So it's not as simple as just we're going cashless. Let's do it now like this. There's just so much more involved in those smaller parks that the pay as you go attractions. Let's look at Knoebels for example. I mean, that's one of the ones that they're still uh, you can still use cash there, and I think that's going to be there for the long run just because of the infrastructure that's in place.
Yeah, I mean, I don't disagree with that. But I don't think that the cashless conversation would necessarily be a priority for a park like that. Uh, I think that it's more for larger operations because
Yeah, big operations. Yeah, you're going to see that in like not only the theme park industry, but we're seeing it now in sports. We're starting to see that at theaters, around the movie theaters, Broadway plays, things like that, where it is now becoming more and more cashless operation at those places as well.
yeah, I mean, I agree. But my thought is this, when we talk about Knoebels and it's a park that, that's owned by one family and they own one park, if they can save 2% on the bottom line by going cashless, I don't necessarily think that the omitted sales would offset that the way that they would with a Cedar Fair, Six Flags, SeaWorld, Disney. Do you?
I agree with you there.
Yeah. I mean, that's just
Yeah,
that's
but
my
the
thought
bigger
that.
parks, yeah, the bigger parks, yeah, much more cost effective in the long run, for the bigger chains.
Yeah, and now if I had to make a prediction on the future of purchasing, I think that for a lot of parks, since season pass sales are what's driven for more and more parks every year, I think that having a declining balance attached to your season pass is going to be something that's considered, especially because if a kid's 6 or 7 years old, the parents can add a balance to the card and send them to the park. Rather than sending them in cash and having them work with a reverse ATM, putting money onto a card. So that's something where the technology's certainly there, but the technology would also have to service that sort of thing. But it works for Starbucks, so it should work for the parks, right?
Yeah, no, Ryan, I want to ask you a question. What's your like payment method? What do you prefer? Using debit cards, credit cards, Google Pay. What do you do?
So for me, honestly, I'm kind of unique, but I think there's going to be more and more people like me as time goes on. And I use Apple Pay, and I actually make purchasing decisions based on whether or not a place takes Apple Pay. I keep, I don't, I'm not going to tell you where I keep my credit cards and stuff, obviously, because that'd be pretty public information. But I don't carry them on me. I don't carry a wallet or anything like that. I just have my phone and my watch. So if I have a choice between two places and one takes Apple Pay and one does not, I will choose the place that takes Apple Pay. Likewise, it's funny because when we were talking about the perfect mobile app, I might have brought this up, but when one of the places that I order from food wise through mobile app more often than any other place is Chipotle, and it's not this just that their food is delicious. It's also the fact that the ordering process is streamlined and I can use Apple Pay and not have to enter a credit card and stuff. So um, when parks go cashless, if they also take Apple Pay, which most of them do nowadays, it's becoming a standard. That's perfect for me. I really like that because it's so much faster and I don't have to carry stuff. Do you ever use touch payments, Don, or are you a credit debit card kind of guy?
I am mostly the debit card, but I've gotten to the point to where more and more of my transactions are being done now through Apple Pay. I'm like you. If they take Apple Pay, I'm more inclined to do
Yeah, I
that.
didn't know you took Apple or that you used Apple Pay. That's kind of impressive for somebody of your wisdom.
That's a nice way to say it with age, but no, no. I mean, you evolve with the times. That's you got to do that. Whether it's in your position of employment or just the technology now that's out there with the smartphones and things. You got to evolve with the times, and it's actually pretty cool to use Apple Pay. Makes it easy, like you said. It's very very easy to do.
Well, one thing and I'm not going to get in too far into the weeds with this because I'm not an expert, but one thing I do know is that for merchants specifically, um, fraud cases cost them a lot of money. So, for example, if somebody bought a bunch of games and stuff. And then the person turned around and said, like, this $70 I don't recognize. I didn't spend this money and my card number must have been stolen. A lot of times the merchants have to eat that. So from if you're on the corporate side of things, like the producer side of things, the Apple Pay and the Samsung Pay, the contactless payments are so much harder to fake. You almost can't do like the skimmers like they used to do with gas pumps and stuff. From my understanding, and this is an unqualified, summary of how it works is when you tap your iPhone, it creates a one-time token which communicates with the MasterCard, Visa, American Express, and so on network.
Mhm.
That can only be used for that one transaction, so it can't be intercepted in between. So that could be a cost saver too. I know that like most people renew their merchant services every couple years, and if you don't have the tap payments, you're gonna have it because it's gonna be essentially required by your merchant services people, but that's one of the huge advantages is it theoretically should cut down on fraud cases and stuff. Do you agree with that?
I agree with that. Absolutely. But you've heard enough from Ryan and I what we think about cashless. Now we'd like to hear from you. Tweet us at attractions_GRP on Twitter and let us know how you feel about the trend in the industry of parks going
Yeah,
cashless.
specifically, let us know if you're for it or against it, and furthermore, do you feel like you spend more or less money in parks as a result of parks going cashless? So attractions_GRP would be a great way to get a hold of us. So Don, it's time for the news. The first news article is not one that you have mentioned before, but I got my own Hawaiian shirt this time. Did you even notice?
You do. You do. That is impressive. Uh, it'll change your life. They're so comfortable. It's just the way to
Yeah,
go.
it is pretty comfortable. I actually stopped at Kohl's immediately before we did this podcast. I know one time when we were talking a couple weeks ago after recording, your wife said go to Kohl's. They've got the best deal. I got this for $25. I so far so good. The problem though is if we get famous off this podcast, they're going to expect us to wear these when we do our autograph signings and pose for photos and so on. So I guess we're stuck with
It's
the Hawaiian.
my everyday wardrobe. Yeah, every day at work, I'm gonna have one of these types of shirts on. They're just so comfortable. I really started, I guess, maybe about 10 years ago, was when I first started wearing them, and now I'm not gonna wear the t-shirts or the collared shirts, those kind of things, the polo shirts. I'm gonna wear these kind of shirts around. But I think you're gonna find it's gonna change your life, and I'm sure I'm going to be seeing you roaming around at different parks and things, wearing these Hawaiian shirts as well.
Well, I think for me, the main thing about the Hawaiian shirts is they're light and airy, and that's very important, obviously, for summertime individuals like us. But the fact that when somebody looks at you while you're wearing a Hawaiian shirt just tells them that you are here for a good time. And I really want to put that message out, don't you?
Yeah, on that. It's all about having fun, right?
That's true. I mean, if anybody knows me outside of the podcast, they know that I am the most fun individual that they've ever met. And I'm saying that without prejudice and without arrogance whatsoever. I really am the most fun individual you can meet.
Well, I can tell you, Ryan and I have gone on a couple different road trips. St. Louis to see the St. Louis Blues play. We've gone to a couple parks and that. He has a good time. He has a lot of fun away from the podcast.
Yeah, at the podcast, I'm a drag, but outside of the podcast, I'm a lot of fun. But anyway, so now on to the next segment, which we decided, by the way, retrospectively, is we're going to call this Pick Six, where we choose six news items from the industry that we think are particularly exciting that we're going to discuss. Very similar to what we've been doing in the past. But Don, I'm going to let you take the first one, number one of six.
All right, construction of Orlando's Epic Universe ramps up. In Epic Universe, it'll feature a new theme park, an entertainment center. There'll be hotels, shops, restaurants, and more. It'll be located on a 750-acre site that nearly doubles Universal's total acreage in Central Florida.
That's so exciting. I've got friends that work for Universal, and they're all excited about it. That's going to have that Super Nintendo world that we discussed last week. Um, I'm particularly excited about this because I go to Orlando often. You do too, so this is definitely a park that we're going to see.
Every time you think there's no more room to expand in Central Florida, something like this happens.
Well, yeah, and you can make that argument about what's that city in the UAE that that builds their own islands? Dubai. If they run out of land, they just
Yeah.
build more land. I like that attitude, don't you? Awesome. Okay, so the next news article is this is actually a patent from Disney. Disney actually patented a locker system that travels with you. If you guys are watching on the YouTube app, you're seeing the patent right now. This is from WDW News today. Walt Disney Company has filed a patent for robotic Sherpa, described as a mobile locker allowing guests to access their stored items whenever they want without having to carry them. So if you're listening to the audio only podcast, the patent actually is like a little robot. You can put your stuff in it. It's got wheels, and presumably it follows you around. Uh, Don, thoughts?
I mean, it's a cool concept. Yeah, I mean, I mean, the technology's there to do it. So, it'd be interesting to see uh, if if this comes to life here.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Now, the locker thing has always intrigued me, because it seems like the solution is getting there for me, selfishly, but it's not quite entirely there yet. So, one thing that if you visit a park like regularly, you start to have personal needs, and that's not gross like it sounds, but you start having personal needs in terms of like you want to bring an extra pair of shoes if it rains, or extra clothes in case you decide to ride the water ride. So my dream product as a season long or year long product is to be able to have my own locker at a park that is just my locker. I know that a lot of parks offer all season lockers where you scan your pass and it gives you a new locker. That doesn't help me. I want to be able to keep an extra pair of shoes in my locker and so on. Um, so this is kind of an interesting concept though, because theoretically you could take everything you need, throw it into this mobile locker, and kind of just let it follow you around. I mean, what would you put in it, Don?
Yeah, I mean, you're not going to see guests picking it up and stealing it either way you're riding, right? So you would think it's going to be heavy enough that that can't happen. But no, I mean, the idea of it, when you're just trying to visualize that, I mean, it's pretty cool.
Yeah, yeah, I love it. I love how innovative Disney can be, and it's not so much about rides and stuff like that, because they're going to be innovative because they're in that business. But when they're in the problem-solving business, as far as this is a problem that our guests have, and this is how we're going to solve it using our Imagineering team, I think that's so cool, don't you?
I do. I really do.
Awesome, awesome.
All right, up next. Only 2 weeks left to secure your spot for an evening of networking, learning, and exploring at IAPA's Mall of America. It's on July 19th. It's 5 to 8 p.m. It's a great way to connect with industry colleagues in Bloomington, Minnesota. It's a great place if you've never been to that part of the country. Mall of America. Just a valuable networking. You get to hear from IAPA leadership. You get a presentation from Nickelodeon Universe Attractions team. Uh, just a great way if you're trying to break into the industry. I highly recommend that you do these little network opportunities that come about that you'll see, through IAPA and other organizations. So definitely take advantage of that. But you need to act now because you only got 2 weeks left to do it to register.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. Now, I've been to three IAPA conventions, and one thing I will tell you about IAPA and the industry as a whole is that people are so out to help you. They just really, really are. There's actually David, who is the proprietor of the Attractions Group, who's our parent company, and I were wrapped up in a deal where we were trying to sell some digital wayfinders to a park, and we were worried because we didn't know how the finances would work. And there's a ride manufacturer, and I'm not going to call anybody out right now, but I was just kind of like being a tourist walking around on the floor of the convention in November, that's every November, and I just kind of vented to him very briefly, like I don't know what to do, I don't know how it works, and he actually took me into one of their consultation rooms that most of the booths have, and where they try to actually do sales, and took time out of his day to explain to me how it works, how they finance stuff. Because when we're talking about rides, even flat rides, where it's upwards of $1 million in a lot of cases. So that situation always stuck with me, and I feel like that really embodies IAPA as a whole. As Don said, if you're young and you want to get into the industry and you want to shake the right hands, IAPA, there's no better way to do it. What's your interaction with IAPA been, especially before you were in the industry, Don? Did you ever go to the IAPA convention? Have you ever been before, actually?
Yeah, I have. Again, a great networking opportunity. A lot of the people that I had become, friends with, they were there as presenters but yeah, I mean, there's been, I would say probably 30, 40 years now for me of being familiar with, IAP and the different opportunities that are out there. But, if you want to work in the industry, definitely take advantage of any of these networking opportunities that are out there because, it is a business too where the more people you know, the better your chance to get in.
Yeah, yeah, I completely agree. So IAPA thumbs up. Again, we plan to be at the convention in November. We're gonna hopefully we'll have enough followers on YouTube. That means you guys to go live there and answer your questions, and maybe we can even do a little tour of the different booths and stuff. Because I know that there's a lot of interest around that, especially from the people wanting to get into the industry. So IAPA is, if you're a fan of theme parks, or even you're like theme park adjacent fans, that's the coolest thing ever because it's everybody showcasing what's best, and there's so many more layers to pull back. There's people that make wheels, people that make buttons, people that make carpets, people, it's just so much more than you think, and it's just so cool. So, yep, absolutely. So that's at the Mall of America in Bloomington, Minnesota, July 19th. You have to register on iapa.org in order to attend. So, Don, do you ever go to Cypress Gardens down in Florida?
No, I have not been there.
Okay.
I have always wanted to though, but I've never been
Yeah,
there.
Cypress Gardens, obviously, as I'm leading into, became Legoland, and they did a really good job of merging the two things. Because they've got the garden, and then they've got the classic theme park, which is this original Cypress Gardens, and then they've got Legos peppered in there. Um, so Legoland's really unique. It's about an hour and a half outside of your Disney's and stuff like that. It's in Winter Garden or Winter Haven. I couldn't get it right the last time, and I'm not going to this time. But you'll have to Google it to buy tickets anyway. But yeah, according to Spectrum News 9, they're opening a new Pirate River Quest. It's going to be a pirate themed ride, first announced last year during the park's 10th anniversary celebration, scheduled to debut November 2nd. So presumably being a pirate themed ride that's probably going to get you wet, but November's pretty warm down there, so that works out. So the storyline for this family friendly attraction will have visitors searching for Captain Redbeard's lost treasure as they hear the tales of the rowdy pirate crew. The attraction will feature a character named Calico Jade, as well as flamingos, monkeys, and a kraken. Pirate River Quest will travel along Lake Elos in the historic Cypress Gardens area. Legoland plans to share behind the bricks moments about the attraction on their social media channels leading up to opening day. So, so behind the bricks, so we've had a lot to say about that as far as brand marketing and stuff. If you were going to build a plan, let's say that this thing is recognizable but not done, to be ready for that November 2nd opening. What would your marketing plan be as far as social media is concerned to keep people so it'd be tease but not spoil? What are your thoughts with that?
I think you want to introduce the characters, have everybody familiar with who they are before someone would experience the attraction. I think that always helps if you're familiar with the storyline. So you want to start with that, just making sure that you've educated your audience as to what the attraction is, the story behind the attraction, what guests can expect when they go there to experience this attraction.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, they do a really good job. So for those of you who haven't been out there, like I said, it's a three-layer park. So it was original Cypress Gardens, which has I think it's pronounced banyan tree, which is a tree that grows out rather than up, and it has its own like things that grow down to support the arms, the branches of the tree. That's so neat to see. That was my favorite part. On top of that, they have like a classic wooden coaster as well as like some Lego dark rides and stuff. And they've even taken some typical rides that were there before it was Legoland and like extended them and added Lego dark ride sections. So such a cool park. Such a cool park.
Yeah, and I mean it's going to be a fun attraction, and we've talked about this on our past episodes. I always love those attractions that families can experience together, and this is right up that alley. And it sounds like it's going to be a lot of fun, and those characters, Calico Jade. I mean, you look forward to seeing those and becoming familiar with them, and just something that it works in terms of that family experience. That's what I like about it.
Yeah, me too. I think that's really cool. And, part of introducing new characters is taking the risk that people don't already have an emotional connection to them. But you also have the opportunity to create that emotional connection so you can control the narrative. I really like that.
Can't go wrong with pirates.
Right. Pirates and Legos. That's everybody loves them until they step on them. I'm talking about pirates, not Legos. I've never stepped on a Lego in my life.
All right, up next, Disney's Tron roller coaster. It nears completion, Ryan. This has been, 5 years ago when they first started talking about it, but Imagineers, they shared a post on Instagram that features three photos that serve as evidence of their progress on the newest Tomorrowland attraction. Um, I'm looking forward to it opening, not just for Tron, but for me. I want it to open so the Walt Disney Road Railroad can open up again.
Yeah, I mean, you definitely have had an obsession with railroads that makes me uncomfortable, but yeah, they haven't been able to open the railroad. They actually refurbished the station and stuff like that. It was covered up when they reopened from COVID. But this Tron thing looks really exciting. They opened Guardians of the Galaxy several weeks ago, which went over very, very well. I know that Tron, I think, was opened in like Beijing or, a resort that's not in North America. So that's and it went over very, very well there, but um you know, I think that Disney's roller coasters are almost underrated in some cases. Would you agree with that?
Oh, absolutely. I've had fun on every Disney roller coaster that I've been on.
Yeah, it's hard not to have fun on a Walt Disney attraction. It's kind of a moot point in some cases, but yeah, I think that it's going to be really cool. The theme is definitely cool. I remember hearing. I mean, I'm a little old for the Tron stuff, but I know that I've got friends with kids, and they're super excited about Tron and the theme and so on. But the Walt Disney Imagineering always does amazing work, so it's going to be really cool to see that. So they did they
Yeah, in the weeks ahead, we should start seeing some show elements, being added, and if you're down at Walt Disney World Magic Kingdom, you'll be able to see more of taking
Yeah,
shape.
I completely agree. Do you think that this kind of ties into our special events thing from last week, but do you think that having show elements, do you think Disney kind of paved the way for that, where it's about the show rather than the ride more so?
I think they do a good job of blending it all together. I think a lot of parks do good jobs of blending it all together. You know, the big takeaway that guests may have from this is going to be the show elements. I think maybe that's going to be your big takeaway, what you're going to remember the most, because we know that that's probably going to be pretty impressive.
Yeah, I completely agree. Now, one thing that kind of comes to mind with that, and this isn't a roller coaster, is when Universal opened the Jimmy Fallon ride. I remember the feedback that I got was that the queue was great, but the ride was okay. But the sum of all parts was an A plus, because it wasn't about the ride; it was about the experience. The ride made up 10% of it. Have you ridden that? Have you been down there yet to ride that?
Yes, and you're right. The overall experience is an A. The ride's good, but it's not the number one takeaway that you have from it.
Yeah, I mean, for those who haven't ridden it, it's like literally just imagine if somebody coming to you saying like, okay, here's a 40, 50, 60, whatever the budget was, at least 50 million, way more probably, and saying like, I want you to have a ride that's themed off of the Tonight Show. Good luck with that. But they did it. You walk in there and it simulates NBC Studios. Um, and they've got little displays for all the hosts of the Tonight Show. And then everything in there, down to the seats where you're in the studio audience for the ride, are identical to, at least to my knowledge, identical to Jimmy Fallon's studio. So the ride itself is a little simulator where things tilt back and forth and whatever. Yeah, it's nothing to write home about. But the whole experience of waiting in line, and they've got, the upcoming acts that are performing, on a little stage while you're waiting, and all the people there are acting like producers, telling you it's ready to go and you're ready to go live and stuff. It's just so cool. Um, when we're down there in November for IAPA, where we hope to see plenty of you guys, we'll have to check that one out because that's just so neat. All right. So, next order of business, Six Flags Over Texas pushes back Aquaman. It's a aqua coaster. It's a multi-launch water coaster. They pushed it back to next year to spring of 2023. Um, so this was originally supposed to open in 2020, got pushed back because of the pandemic. We haven't heard much about it, and then here we are, a couple years later, and they're saying 2023. Um, I'm sure that there's a really good reason why they're pushing it back. Probably a part of it is they're probably taking the SeaWorld route where the demand is so high now that they don't need to open a ride now. Or it could be have something to do with like supply chain. There could be parts that they just can't get yet. Um, this is my question for you, Don. Whether it's this, Iron Gwazi, or Pantheon, because those are the three rides that really got pushed back in wake of the pandemic. Do you think that it adds anticipation when rides get pushed back, or do you think that it takes the wind out of the sails?
I think it can add to the anticipation. I mean, you only get to launch a ride once, make that first impression once, and you got to do it at the right time. So sometimes it's better to open something, 3, 4, 5, 6 months, a year, later than you originally intended, then maybe do that 5, 6 months too early. So it really comes down to you got to do what's best for your park and what makes the most sense. And so like I said, sometimes it's a lot better to you know do it later than do it now, and you still build up that anticipation, but you only get that one that first impression. And the climate, we're still recovering. Everybody in the industry from the pandemic, and people are still getting used to traveling and visiting that again. So uh, you know I don't it maybe it makes more sense to do it next year. Just by that time, we should be past everything, and really back into more normal like it was back in 2019 again by 2023. Maybe in those other situations it wasn't there, for a variety of reasons. So, there's always a reason why something, legitimate reason why something doesn't open when it opens. It's supposed to open and it's delayed or whatever, and but it always makes the most sense to do it at the right time for you, not when everybody else wants you to open it. Because again, you only get that one chance to make that first impression.
Yeah, I completely agree. And one thing that I like about your response is that you didn't say this, but there is no right answer. You guys opened Orion in 2020 because it was appropriate for you. Six Flags is opening Aquaman next year because it's appropriate for them. There are reasons there. There are really, really smart people that are analyzing this and making a decision. And again, we don't know if there's a pump or a part or pieces of track or something like that they can't get their hands on right now, or they'll get their hands on in November. What's the point of opening it in November? Six Flags Over Texas, it's warm there in the winter, but it's not water ride warm.
Yeah, I mean, the pandemic may seem like it's a little bit more in the rearview mirror, but there are still challenges that the industry is still working to overcome. Associated with the pandemic, and we're getting closer, uh, but not there yet, and it impacts a lot of different things, including new ride openings.
Yeah, yeah, I completely agree with that. Fortunately, you kind of alluded to this, but hopefully this will be the last true impact of the pandemic that's directly related. Of course, there's always going to be bankruptcies, sales, stuff like that, when a company just couldn't survive. But this is obviously, somehow directly related to the pandemic, and hopefully it's the last one. So here's to that, right, Don?
Right.
Awesome. Cool. Well, that's our six, plus well, one more time. Hold on. I'm going to put the camera on me. So make sure you tweeted us at attractions_GRP. If anything, to let me know what you think of my Hawaiian shirt, because I spent 24.95 on this just to match Don for the podcast. So um, again, attractions_GRP. You can find our podcast on your favorite podcasting apps. That's Apple, Google, Spotify, and so on. Just search for the Attractions Group. Make sure you follow us on YouTube. Again, one of our initiatives that we really want to do here soon is to go live and answer your questions. And if you guys want to, make fun of us or, have fashion design recommendations on our future Hawaiian shirts, then that would obviously be welcome. But yeah, so follow us on YouTube and follow us on your favorite podcast apps. And again, we really appreciate your support through all of this. Don, any final thoughts for the week?
No, another fun discussion that we had today. We hope our audience enjoyed it as much as you and I did talking about it. And we've got, like we mentioned in our first couple of episodes, that in progress. We're still playing with the format. We wanted to do a number of pilot episodes before we really take the next step, and that will include having special guests on. And I think we're really going to enjoy that point, our audience and both us, Ryan, when we start to get to that point where we have those special guests joining us.
Yeah, I mean, to be clear, one of the things that we've got a long list of subject matters with experts that we're pretty sure we could get on the podcast. But we didn't want to bore somebody that's very important with, our little technical problems and stuff like that. Fortunately, showing you a little bit behind the curtain. I mean, Don, you can agree that I know that the last episode had some audio issues and we've had to start over a few times, as all podcasts do. But overall, this has gone a lot more smoothly than I kind of anticipated it would, hasn't it?
Oh, it has a lot more smooth than I anticipated. Neither one of us had ever ventured into the podcast world outside of just being on as a guest somewhere. So when you look at this, we're the board op, we're the ones, the camera ops, everything else. It's a two-man show here doing that. So yeah, it's absolutely gone a lot smoother than I thought it would at the beginning.
Yeah, I mean, just as an example is, if you're watching the YouTube version, you'll notice that we're cutting camera angles. So when Don's talking, it's him on the screen, and when I'm talking, it's me on the screen, and we got different graphics and stuff. The reason why we didn't have that is because I didn't know how to do that until like 2 hours ago. Okay, so
Yes, and with the podcast, it adds to your skill set. So there's a great advantage there of doing this together, that we're adding to our skill sets.
yeah, so if any Fortune 500 company wants us to make a podcast about their industry, which we're not experts on whatsoever, we're more than happy to do that for a fee. So again, attractions_GRP. Follow us on your favorite podcast apps. Follow us on YouTube. We want to go live. We want to answer your questions. Any feedback is welcome. Once again, my name's Ryan Suhr. With me, as always, is Don Helbig, and we will see you next week.